Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Power Up. Maude and I are super excited because today we have a very special guest, and I've had a couple of people message me on Discord and say, Trisha, I didn't think it was a special guest week. It's a special guest week now, and you'll see why in just a second. So, Maude, do you want to tell everybody what Power Up is in case this is their first time?
Hey, if this is your first time, welcome to Power Up. Power is an acronym. It stands for playing, watching, reading. And for the last, 6 years with Geek Bomb, I believe actually Troy, our guest, was a Power. The original formation of it, like 5 years ago, I guessed on Geek Bomb. Amazing. But we basically celebrate geekdom and we talk about the things that we are consuming so that we end up becoming this big sort of like databank of recommendations of geek stuff out there. Thank you so much for watching on Trisha's Twitch page. If you haven't given it a follow or a sub, just hey, maybe today's the day to do that. If you're watching on Geek Bomb, hi, thank you so much for watching the VOD. If you'd like to give that a sub, please. I am sick of being just a little under 100,000 again. Like, it is just one of the...
Oh, no. It's one of those milestones that you hit, and then you, like, moonwalk a little, and then you hit, and then you moonwalk a little. I get it. You know what? It happens to everybody, Maude. We've all been there.
This was my silver button. And then a fan sent me a mini silver button because I had dipped under and then got 100,000 again. And then we just stopped doing it now because it's happened about 7 times.
That's amazing. And I love that so much. To anyone who is watching the show on Twitch right now, I do want to let you know that alerts have been turned off for the show, but I will be shouting them out in between each segment. So if you follow, if you sub, you won't hear an audible or see a visual notification on screen for this stream only. But again, we will thank you to the high heavens in between segments. So thank you so much for being here. All right, Maude. Introduce our guest to everybody today.
Guest of ours this week, which I'm super, super thrilled about. He's one of my favorite people to talk to when we have microphones thrust in our faces. But Troy Baker, he and I have been friends for years now. We actually met at Comic-Con about 6 years ago, believe it or not. When I interviewed him when I was working for an Australian outlet. Troy is a very established voiceover artist who's done all of your favorite games, including reprising his role in The Last of Us 2, which is something that I'm really excited to talk about, even though you're probably sick of it. But guys, give it up. We've got Troy Baker on today's show. Hey!
Yay! Welcome, Troy. Thank you so much for being here today.
Dude, Comic-Con memories. My God.
Yeah, we were having a big chat about that just earlier, where there was like, are we kind of relieved to have a year off from it all? Are we a little bit dependent on Comic-Con to have social interactions with our favorite people? The answer is yes, across the board. For all
It's
of us.
always exhausting, but at the same time, every time I'm always like, man, I'm glad I went. I always think it's like, I feel like Michael Corleone in Godfather 3. I'm like, just when I thought I was out, they dragged me back in. But at the same time, you're right. It's like I'm missing so many people right now that I depend on those kind of interactions to be able to like, oh, let's go get a drink, catch up, and you tell me what's been going on. By the way, this pink highlighter has been with me all day today. So he's or she or non-binary, I don't care, is my +1 today. So you will see this a lot. There are other people have commented. They're like, what was he fiddling with? I'm a fiddler, by the way. Not like a fiddler, but I'm a fiddler. So I should probably do this.
Do you have a fidget spinner? I feel like that's the question when you say I'm a fiddler. Do you have like a spinner ring or a fidget spinner at all?
No, I'm too old school analog for that. I have drumsticks, and we were doing we started this platform because I don't even call it. It's not even a channel anymore because we're not even really on YouTube. I'm the worst content creator ever. We have this super hyper focused platform that we have right now called Relator. And the main thing that we've been doing is every Saturday we've been doing the movies together. So we all go to the movies, and I took everybody to go see The Matrix, all 3 of them, including some of the canonical but extemporaneous or superfluous content, the Animatrix.
The Animatrix.
Hell yeah, dude. Once you understand the final flight of the Osiris, once you understand who the kid is, you realize Neo's not the one. Woof! I will light your mind up when it comes to the Matrix.
Oh yeah.
But we were doing Hamilton because it was on Disney Plus, and I mean, God, it's great because what we do is we watch the movie down, And then afterwards, we all jump on a Zoom call. So there's like 65, I think, people on this Zoom call at the end of it. And we just kind of go, what do you think, what was your thoughts on this? And then we extrapolate kind of the principles of whatever the movie is. And somehow people always find a way to apply it to their life. And it's been crazy, but we were sitting there and we're all watching it. And I've got and of course it's a musical. So I'm like, and like, Troy, stop fidgeting. I was like, I'm sorry. So I throw my drumsticks away. So yeah, I'm a fidgeter.
That sounded like
I could do a paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. It's bad. I've been this way my entire life. Are you that's right. You are a drummer. You're probably a better drummer than I am.
Oh, I'm not.
Really?
I am not. No. I had a really bad experience when I was on radio because I went to this house party and I, was drunk enough to think that it'd be a really good idea to drum alongside the DJ. And I remember, like, in my mind, everyone was having the best time. They grabbed pots and pans. We were all just like drum fest. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm amazing. I told my co-host on radio that I had done that. And then that night's live show, they wheeled in an electronic drum kit and they played a song from the top 40 and they were like, go on, drum. And it turns out...
No. I need to be drunk at a party.
I couldn't drum at all. So I've got like severe PTSD now.
No.
And I prefer to be all talk. Yeah.
Maude, so did you ever study drums, Maude, or you just got into it because you like percussion?
I was in the band. I did percussion. So from like 9, I started doing it semi-seriously. And then by 13, I was having professional drum lessons on the kit. And then it kind of fizzled out because I went to a private all-girls school and no one needed a drummer. So I kind of like tapped out a little bit. And then when I was 19, I bought a drum kit online and it never arrived. And so I took that as a sign that I should just not hit things.
So you were basically Watts from Some Kind of Wonderful. If anybody gets that reference.
Yeah, not me.
Not me either. We'll see if Chat does, though. Chat very well might.
And my drums, I had such a crush on her. She was amazing. She was just a badass. She was if you haven't seen Some Kind of Wonderful, it's incredible. Some Kind of Wonderful.
So Troy, I know everybody probably asks you how you got into voice acting, but I want to know how you got into music.
I remember the first time I wrote a song. I'm not going to tell you where I was because it's embarrassing. But I was probably like 6 or 7 years old. And music has always just been like that thing for me. I always wanted to tell stories through music. And I've found deeper connection. Like I was telling my wife about this. I don't care what you think about U2. They are objectively probably the last great band of all time. Like if you think about bands that will last for 40 years, right? They've been together longer than U2's been together longer than the Beatles, second to the Rolling Stones or any of those bands in touring since like '79. Like that's an incredible statement, incredible accomplishment. I had seen U2 every tour except for Joshua Tree, and so 2 years ago, I think it was, or 3 years ago, when they were doing Joshua Tree tour, I got to see them at Pasadena Rose Bowl, and I just wept because it was one of the most moving. The way they did that show is just incredible, and I have such visceral memories with specifically Joshua Tree. Like I told I was 10 years old, I think, when that album came out, 11, and I had the girl that I had a major crush on, and With or Without You was playing, and I was like, hey, and I just like confessed my undying devotion to her, and she literally spun on her heel, didn't say a word, and walked out and broke my heart. And then like I would steal through the night in my parents' car, and I would listen to the A side, which had like With or Without You, Where the Streets Have No Name, and all those songs that you remember that from the album. And I would always, before the album would flip over, like the cassette would flip over, I would start it over again, I would rewind and play it again. And then one day I just let it continue, and it hit that B side, and it was like this whole other world that nobody knew about. And it was just between me, that album, and the night air. And so I've just got like all these memories. So music has always kind of been my way that I thought I would always tell my story. And then I thought I was gonna be a professional musician, and I thought that I was gonna set the world on fire with my music. I was like, no, that's not gonna be your path at all. And then while I was chasing that dream and trying to kick down that door, another dream and another door presented itself. And lo and behold, I'm sat here in front of you to talk about the amazing projects that I've been fortunate to be a part of. And now I get to, like we were sitting here getting set up, so I can pick up a guitar and play it without the obligation of it being a vocation, which I have friends that is their life. And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, this year specifically, I knew a buddy he's a sideman for Father John Misty. He plays keys for him, and he's an incredible musician, incredible producer, an incredible songwriter. And Father John Misty put all of his band on furlough and paid them all for the year because they were supposed to be on tour. And he's just that guy is an incredible dude. So fortunately he's okay, but I know a lot of other people that are like, I was supposed to be on tour with you name it artist, and we're not doing that. So I'm glad that this is the path that life put in front of me, and it's a far better version of my life than what I originally had planned.
Have you been working throughout this lockdown? Because I mean, you can record from anywhere.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that until this whole thing happened, and literally the day that quarantine started, my agent was getting calls from Warner, Sony, Disney, everybody going, can you do this from home? And fortunately, because people still need cartoons and video games, and it can be done primarily at home, and more than that, the video game industry is comprised completely of professional problem solvers. So they looked at COVID and went, "Oh, this is bad design. We can fix this. This is a shitty boss battle." They redesigned it so that there was one day where I was working on a game, and the day before, this dude came full gloves, mask, hazmat suit, and everything, and dropped off 4 Pelican cases of. All I could think about is in Jurassic Park when. She picks up the binoculars. She goes, "Are they heavy?" And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Then they're expensive. Put them down." And it was like, I was like, all this stuff is heavy. That means it's really expensive. And I had a very intense Zoom call with a buddy of mine teaching me how to do everything. We did actual facial capture from my studio right over there. So
Whoa.
I've either been doing a test for a session or in a session since this whole thing happened. Yeah.
How do you do mocap from home, Troy? I need to hear about this.
So Mocap, there was talk about it. They were like, if we dropped off a Vicon system to your room, would you be able to? I was like, I can try. But the facial capture, at least I could do. So yeah, I mean, look, I'm super grateful for the people that have been able to, in like the case of The Last of Us, where you're in the middle of crunch and this happens. That's literally the worst time for that to happen. And every other person, like Ghost of Tsushima, which just dropped today, they got impacted by this. Iron Man VR, another Sony game, they got impacted by this. So all of these people, whether you like these games, think they're great or not, it's a miracle whenever a game ships, period. If a game can ship under those conditions,
yeah,
you got to at least give them props for that. You may not like the whatever basketball team, but if that guy does a 3-pointer from the top of the key, you still got to go, all right, that was good for them.
Now,
it's pure vodka, by the way. So,
go for it. It's your weekend. Get it going. Now, Troy, do you have? You probably do. Do you have like a professional VO booth set up in your house that just lives there all the time?
I mean, I'm staring at it right now. I'm not ignoring you. Trisha, I'll speak with you in a moment.
Okay.
I have a closet. The beauty of this is like, we were house hunting when this whole thing started, and that was like, okay, we're gonna wait for just a second, and just kind of keep everything now. I've been able to figure out what it is that I would do if I were to build this out, and so I've got a great system that I've just completely destroyed this closet and turned it into a booth that's functional. And like Hollywood Reporter did a piece on several artists that are VO people that are working at home. And then you had like their kind of setup and then mine, and my desk looks like the desk of the Enterprise because it's just like gear.
Yes.
Not everybody is that. And I also know people that are like, yeah, I've got pretty much just like a laptop and this thing, and that's all that I need. And they're producing, and you're producing incredible content. This is just my golf. Like if I had to do anything else in the zombie apocalypse, if they're like, somebody was like, quick, we need someone to be able to put together a rig. I'm like, I could do audio. Okay, how can I help you?
Well, I'm the getaway driver, so that's great.
Are you? Oh, dude,
Yeah.
then I'd be able to record it or whatever. Like I could maybe I could make a good song, and then we could just steal off into the night and not get destroyed by zombies.
That's-
Yeah, I would, in the zombie apocalypse, I'm definitely, if there's electricity, I'm the tech girl, for sure.
Yeah.
Are you IT?
Oh my God,
Are you
we
the
need
person who goes
Tom.
move?
Yeah, I'm IT if IT exists. It depends what type of
Okay.
apocalypse we're in, but if it exists.
Well, and the good news for you guys, if shit goes down with the Zompoc, because, petrol is a limited resource, once we don't have any vehicles, I am the person that is willing to sacrifice myself to save the group. So,
Oh, Maude.
yeah.
Is that you? Is that what you do?
Yeah, I would run that way, draw the zombies. They would all climb over me and destroy me, and it would be agonizing because they would rip me from them, and I would still be alive. My entrails are out, but I would see you guys through glistening eyes making your escape, and I would be like,
When
just
schools
one
would
line.
reopen, then we would name one after you. Be like, that is Maude High.
Maude is high. She would have to be
Maude
to do
is
that.
high. I'll do it. I don't care, man.
I want to talk
Hey,
about
zombie. All right, come here. I want to tell you something weird.
you got a little something. It's just a little something on your face.
It was funny. I have not gotten high all quarantine, which is not like, oh my God, you get high every day. But I'm just saying, you would think, like, I know that people are like, oh, my liver, is really starting to hurt because of quarantine. It's like, all of my vices have been, I guess because I've been like agile. I've been trying to stay on my toes and make sure that I don't get too crazy. Like, that would be the worst thing if you had to like gear up for a zombie apocalypse, whatever, and you were hungover. Just like,
With a
God.
wailing liver.
I'll-
Yeah.
I'll
I
tell
had
you-
a really heavy first month of drinking because it's just like that's when we just didn't know, or we only thought it was going to be like a month off before we got back into it. So it was like, oh, it's 5 o'clock, glunk. And then I don't really drink that much anymore. And I, have been trying to exercise. I've been trying to do all right. You just got to keep this okay, really. That's the number one.
That has been my number one activity. Have you learned a language? Have you started like going down that path?
Yep,
What
I
did
did
you
that. I started Japanese.
Ooh.
Think desu ka?
Genki desu ka? I lived in Japan for 2 months on a gig, and it was so much fun. And the coolest thing was when I could walk into the Starbucks and order my coffee and do it all in Japanese. It was like, I get living or learning by immersion.
I'm in the
100%.
same. And what they've done in this app is that they're trying to get you to identify kanji. And I think that's what it is, like the characters. And I need to be able to visualize how the word looks to be able to retain it.
Yeah.
So so that when they started just going, all right, you need to learn Japanese characters, I was like, this is actually so much harder because I need to be able to see ka, bi, ka. Oh, there you go.
I'm just excited.
Last time I spoke to you, you told me the
What?
most incredible story about The Last of Us, and a moment that you shared because it was going sort of viral, this image of you, the moment in the first game where your daughter dies, and it was the most heart-wrenching thing, and you told us the story behind that. But I haven't actually spoken to you since The Last of Us 2 came out, and I know that a chunk of people have finished the game already. I wanted to know what the biggest difference was from 1 to 2.
Without spoilers, I will say,
And
because
have you recovered yet? Have you emotionally recovered?
Have you played it? Have you dove in?
I haven't finished it.
Okay.
my Twitch playthrough, so everyone that's watching this right now live on Twitch, we are on Abby's Seattle Day 2.
Okay. And this is your first go, Trish?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Man, I had a great conversation with Neil about this. We had like a 2-hour conversation,
So that, yeah.
and my favorite part was when he was just like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna answer the questions." I was like, "Yeah, baby, get into it." What was the biggest difference between 1 and 2? I had my obstacles with 1. I think they're probably still foundationally the same obstacle just rearing its head in a different way. But the first one was me trying to prove to people, like I told you in that conversation, like me trying to prove to people that I was a good actor, but which means I was trying to prove to myself that I was a good actor, and overcoming that and learning the lesson and walking away from that, the character has to be bigger than the actor. And when we flip that and we try to make the actor bigger than the character, then people are typically like, meh. Or all I see is that person, I don't see the character.
Yeah.
So when you walk into part 2, or when I walked into part 2, it was like, holy shit, this character is big. It meant something to people now. This story meant, it was no longer ours. It belonged to the world. And it was easy for me to get hung up in what will people think. And anytime that Neil and I, there's like two or three times when Neil and I like butted heads. It was always because I was afraid of what people would think. And I would, if I'm really honest about it, it was because I'm afraid that people would think this. Now, at the root of it was because I desperately love that character and I love this story, and it's the greatest thing I've ever been a part of. What it has left in its wake is evidence alone of its art, whether you agree with it or not. You can't deny it. It's objectively masterful. Whether or not it's your taste, whether or not you agree with it, you can't. That people are saying it's lazy writing. I'm like, okay, pitch me something better. Pitch me a better version of this story. I would love to hear what version you come up with, because that's a pretty smart minds between Hallie Gross and Neil Druckmann and the 300 people that work at Naughty Dog that crafted that experience, that are at the top of the industry, and they've been doing this for 7 years. They've been working on this. If you can come up with a better version in a couple of months, go for it. You may be the brightest minds working in video games today. Go ahead.
I have a question about that, because we saw it with Star Wars as well, where people start having this ownership over the properties that they like, and then complaining that it doesn't fall within what they particularly like. And they have this sort of like suggestion that they can do a better job. And it's like, yeah, look, you're sitting in your living room kind of like getting angry on Twitter, and you're a little bit all talk there. And I think that we are actually starting to forget art as a process and more of an afterthought, where it's like, oh, I would have done that differently. And it's like, yeah, but do you understand what that was to begin with?
Not only that, but I feel like what we've abandoned completely and left in the rain is discourse. Because I watched a documentary about flat earthers. A lot of people watch this documentary. And when I finished it, I went, got it. I understand now. I understand them. I understand our culture. It was so revelatory because the world doesn't feel right now. And I am impotent to change the world. It is because everything that I do has no effect. It is just, I am beating my hands and my head against the wall, and there is no haptic feedback that I'm getting. So it's the world that's wrong. There's nothing about me that needs to change. It's the world that needs to change. So I push back against that. And then I abandon it because I know something that you don't know. I have a completely different, and this perspective shines a light on the fact that this world and this whole reality is wrong. So I'm going to abandon this reality and align myself with this, even though there's no evidence that shows that this is a better version. And then me believing in this reality isolates and ultimately alienates me from everybody else. And then I realize that this belief, which I'm kind of not really digging on anymore, has cost me so much that to walk back from that,
You've gone too far.
I've gone too far. So I have to double down again, because now this reality is all that I have. And there are people that have said, I will never play that game. I'm like, well, then, okay, I can't argue with that. If someone goes, hey, I played it, I recognize these things, I don't agree with the story, I didn't like it, I just didn't feel like it was this or this or this, and they do it in such that I'm like, that's discourse.
Yeah.
And I can respect that. It's what people used to do. They used to finish dinner, go into a separate room, and drink fancy bourbon or whatever, and go, I fundamentally disagree with you. Convince me wrong. It's like, that was discourse. That's what we did. And that's what moved us forward. That's what got us out of, you know what? I kind of feel like maybe we shouldn't have slaves anymore. It's like, my God, Johnson, are you serious? Who would do all the work? It's like, well, maybe we do the work ourselves. Maybe we shouldn't like completely disenfranchise an entire species based upon the color of their skin and actually move this country forward. It's like, maybe you have something there. Have another drink. That's what moved us forward, and not just shamelessly, yelling at other people and telling them how wrong they are.
Without even putting in any work. You're exactly right.
But
You're like, okay, I'm not going to play the game. So you hate something that you've had nothing to do with. Right. So you have a baseless accusation. Yeah. But it's their principle. You're right. That personal principle that they have that they cannot, that's completely unwavering. I get it.
Because you know what I said about it? Oh my gosh.
Right.
I said it was the worst thing to ever happen to humanity. What if I play it and I have to admit to people that I'm wrong? Nobody admits that they're wrong right now. People that are in the highest power are not willing to go, my bad, y'all. I made a mistake. Sorry about that.
I think you hit the nail on the head of why we have so many issues right now, especially with racism and politics. No one's actually able to say, oh, I had to do a lot of learning here, and I can actually recognize things from my past where at the time I wasn't aware, but now that I have this information, I can actually say that this is not great. But you're right, we are so afraid of being wrong in any scenario, and that double down, defend why. And I've been guilty of this before, relationships that I've had with particular friends, where it's like all I had to do was kind of apologize at that time because I didn't take their feelings into consideration and I truly believed that I was right. I would double down instead of having that open discourse. And yeah, it's such a big learning curve. We could talk about this for ages, but I am so excited to talk about playing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you.
About games and stuff.
Yeah, Troy, I will tell you, through my playthrough so far on Twitch, we've been having, like, this community, the Dragon Rider community, has been having some amazing discourse around this game. Like, anytime something monumental happens, which happens pretty often throughout this game, you hit stop moments where you're like, I just need to, like, pause and let that sink in what just happened, and let's take a moment to talk about it. We'll just stop the game and like just have a full discourse for a while. And it's nice because you have people on kind of all sides of opinions, but we're all going through the experience together and still able to, as you say, sit in our fancy cigar lounge chairs with our fancy whiskey and have a conversation about it, as opposed to just shutting it down before you even give it a chance.
Yep.
There's
I'm
someone
always
going.
about that. I just think if whether or not we did this thing today, we're talking about Ghost of Tsushima, and I was like, is it a pass, play, or platinum? Like, what do you want to do? You want to say it's not for me? Great, that's fine. It's like, I'll play it and see what it thinks like. Like, no, this is exactly what I want it to be. Those are kind of like the 3 levels. Are you going to pass, play, or platinum? But at least if you want to participate in the conversation, man, get in the ring. Get in the ring. It's like, just jump in there.
So speaking of video games and past player platinum, we're going to get into what you're playing in just a moment. Everybody, stay tuned. Troy, we will see you in just a bit. And everybody who's been watching today, thank you so much for being here. And we will see you in just a moment to find out what Troy's playing.